You are listening to the Beyond Believing podcast. I am your host, Katie Ann. I am a certified life coach, a divorced mom to 5 amazing children, and I am here to share some love and encouragement with you about healing and moving on post-divorce as a Christian woman. Stick around after the show for some details on how we can work together. You are listening to the Beyond Believing podcast, episode number 42. All right, friends, welcome to episode 42, what I am calling the power of yet. And before we dive into that, I am going to remind you that I am still doing my brand new case study that I am calling Selah Healing. It's designed for divorced Christian women, 12 weeks of private coaching, up close and personal with me, where we get crystal clear on creating the life post-divorce that you are excited and at peace about every single day. You can find all the details in my show notes. I'm only taking a handful of women, and I'm only going to be offering this program for a short amount of time, so come and join me while you can. And my social media pages have still not returned, so our new social media pages are just on TikTok. If you have not yet found me over on TikTok, you can find the link to that in my show notes, along with my YouTube and my Patreon pages that I have created, where I am going to be working some more behind the scenes on building an amazing community just for women like you. Also, I am still taking prayer requests. I kind of have forgotten to remind you here, but this is truly one of my favorite things. I do pray over every episode and everybody who's listening, but reach out to me on any one of those platforms in my show notes, and please just let me know how I can pray for you specifically in this season. I have been getting more of these requests, and it truly is just an honor and privilege for me to be able to have this ability to pray with you and for you and over you. So please keep those coming. Okay, let's dive into the power of yet. I saw this last week, a reel of this woman who's rebuilding her life post-divorce. She's quit her job. She's starting a private physical therapy practice. And she said the other day, being delulu is the new salulu. And it just made me laugh so hard. I kind of want to frame it. It just fits post-divorce life in so many ways. Let's just talk about what is the real salulu, which is letting God working in your life, in your yet, in this place between who you were before and who He's still shaping you to be. You know, people have not been here before, if they've not been in your shoes. Your life looks delulu, right? Like, how many people do you have that are just like, how are you doing that? How is that going? What are you going to do? How are you going to make that happen? And guess what? Most of the times, the answer is, I don't yet know. But God does. I can't tell you how many times I just say, God knows. God's got it figured out. I don't have that map, but I know God does. And He hasn't revealed that to me yet. So that's what we're going to be talking about. What is the power of yet? I know that many of you are struggling with the desire for love again after divorce. And I hear you. I really have been there. But here's what I've learned. God doesn't bring you your Boaz. I talked about my Boaz last week and Ruth and Boaz. And He doesn't bring you that man before you become Ruth, before you've been prepared. This isn't about waiting for a man. Friend, this season is about becoming the woman who walks in faith, purpose, and truth, obedience, submission to God, not just praying, but learning to surrender fully to the God who created you. One of my favorite things that is the most powerful thing you can ever do that I love to teach my clients is stay focused on the problems you personally are the solution to, or the salulu, as they like to say. And now when I say you are the solution, I mean you are focusing on the things you can control and the things that you are doing or not doing. You can't control when your Boaz shows up. You can't control what your ex is doing. You can't control your children's experience. You can't control a lot of things in this world, but you can prepare to be the kind of woman who recognizes your Boaz when he does show up. And I'm going to argue, like I said last week, you get placed in his world. When you are prepared, when you are ready, that is when God is going to put you in your Boaz's path. It really requires a lot of self-reflection, really hard, really honest questions. These are the 3 questions that I like to ask myself. Number 1, who am I really being? Who do I say I am? Not what does everybody else say I am? Who does God say I am? Who do I believe that I am? Number 2, what am I truly willing to do to have what I say I want? And number 3, what am I not willing to do? When you are really honest with yourself about these questions, when you can look yourself in the mirror and you can confidently answer these without some shame or judgment or blame, friend, you are on a whole new level. But first of all, you're going to feel a lot of kickback. It's like a punch in the gut to be really honest with yourself about these questions. And I'm just going to share a little tough love here because that's just who I am. The truth is really hard to hear sometimes, especially with ourselves. And our temptation is really to reject it. I was listening to this talk by A.W. Tozer this week, and he was talking about this. It was so good. But my friends, this is a really big but. If you are willing to allow the Spirit to teach and guide you, the truth becomes the most comfortable thing to hear. Now, if you're just like all the bells and whistles, prickly and feeling defensive, you're onto something. Because when you're feeling something like gut check like that and you instantly feel defensive, you know there's something true in what you just heard. We have been taught not that the truth is hard to hear, but that we shouldn't have to really hold ourselves accountable, that somebody else is to blame. And this is a really dangerous lie to start believing and living after because it takes away your power. You cannot control what other people are doing. You can only control what you are doing. So when you start to find peace and comfort in the truth and you can really be honest with yourself, that, friends, is when you step into the power of the Spirit of God within you because His truth is speaking to you and you can acknowledge it, recognize it, accept it, learn from it, and move forward. And what I have learned is that any false pretense or twist of the truth or any misrepresentation of truth, now for me, I don't have any tolerance, even especially in my own self. Like, hey, you know, that's not really what we want to do or say. That's not really who we want to be. That's not really what we believe is true. What is God telling me? Facing myself and admitting that I'm falling short or that I really haven't given my best was really hard. I tell you, it's uncomfortable, but it gets more comfortable as time goes by because it's not about being bad. It's about being refined. It's like, ooh, the Spirit is teaching me something. Thank you so much. I'm so grateful for that because I don't want to be sitting in any form of deceit in myself and in my life. And of course, I would prefer to avoid any discomfort. We all want to avoid that. But reality is, you can't be delulu about it if you really want to be the woman that God created you to be. And reality is, I haven't yet become who He created me to be. I have this saying written in several different places in my Bible and journal, and it says, "Praise God, I am not who I used to be." And praise God, I am not yet who I am meant to be. This is a journey, friends, and it can be really beautiful and really empowering if you allow God to do the teaching. The truth is, God's plan is the delulu. It's the solution, which almost always looks delulu or delusional to the rest of the world. Most of the time, it doesn't ever make sense to the rest of the world yet. I mean, think about how many times in the Bible did you see God directing people in a way that made sense to the rest of the world? I mean, just Moses. A burning bush told him to return to Egypt. A burning bush, friends. Like you go out into a desert. a burning bush appears to you, you tell anybody about that, they're going to think you're crazy. And then he led this huge group of people, the Israelites, to the Red Sea with the Egyptians chasing them in their chariots, this enormous army. And they get to the Red Sea. I mean, I know you can relate with the Israelites when they get there and what is happening? This is the solution. We are literally at a body of water. Of course, that isn't exactly what they said, but stick with me for just 1 second, okay? Then they're wandering around the wilderness with no food. And of course, there's a lot of details in between these, and they're all very important. I'm not trying to diminish any parts of this story. I just want to highlight the parts that look delusional to the world and even the Israelites. But the point is that God's ways are not ours. His solutions are on a grander scale because he has a grander picture. He has a grander view. We're looking in 1D, friends, and he's 100D. Let's be real. None of the Israelites thought any of that made sense until it did. Hebrews 11:1 is a really great reminder to me that faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. Faith is what we don't see yet. It's not meant to make sense to us in the moment, but there is evidence and assurance of his promises, of him bringing and being the solution. And you can have faith in that. And you can have assurance and hope in that. And I also love Ecclesiastes 3, where it teaches us that God's seasons are wise. He has a plan and a purpose and a timing and a season under heaven. We can trust him and his process because we start to understand or make sense of what is happening in our lives. And you think you maybe are understanding what God is telling you and leading you to do. I have a little bit of harsh news to share with you, friends, just because I love you so much and I want you to know God for sure. If you are feeling like what he's telling you is starting to make sense and that you understand where he's taking you in the future, not looking back, but looking ahead, you are most definitely not following the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob the Bible teaches us about. His ways are not supposed to make sense to us. The less you understand, the more on track you are. Okay? So we're not meant to understand his ways looking forward yet. You can look back and see how it does. You can see the other side of what it feels like to get, quote unquote, all of your struggles. When you get to that other side, then you can look back and you can see, oh my gosh, there was God. That's how he led, guided, protected, prepared me, everything. Now it all makes sense. But when you're looking forward and you're facing it, it's not supposed to. It's your faith, friends. It's a journey. It's a season of becoming. There are promises and assurances you can rely on. This is the essence of faith. You aren't supposed to have all the details, the roadmap, a basic outline, or even a broad overview ahead of time. Last week, I shared God had led me to my own Boaz. And like I mentioned, I realized that many of you want to know about how to find love again post-divorce, or that there's hope for you to find love again post-divorce. So I just thought I'd share a few details about what God did to help me prepare for this man. Because, friends, God isn't going to be bringing you true godly love or a godly man before you are ready to recognize him, to receive him, and be the companion he is looking for. Because reality is, he also has standards. He also deserves a godly woman who wants to create and maintain a biblical relationship. God wasn't going to bring me to this man he had for me until I could receive him for who he was, not who I imagined or tried to control him to be. I'm going to get into that a little more too. But while I am not yet going to go into all the details about my Boaz, just for time's sake, I am going to share with you again, what he did to prepare me. He has shaped me to be ready to receive this godly love God himself shares with me. I had to learn what God's love looked like, what it felt like, how it acted, how to recognize it, how to receive it. I'm going to talk about that some more in a minute, but first, I'll tell you the story about how I met my Boaz. And just don't roll your eyes, okay, friends, because I met my Boaz at church, which is exactly where you need to meet your Boaz, okay? I mean, I have a whole post about this week about how, just because he's at church doesn't make him a godly man. But this is cliche and perfect, okay? And when I was brought to my Boaz, I was very, very, very content with the idea that God was my husband, like possibly forever. I mean, I was getting really, really comfortable with that idea that God was just going to be my husband forever. And I was probably going to be single. And I will tell you, I was actually even a little arrogant about this. I had really gotten to the point that I was so at peace with God and his love for me. And I was so comfortable with him and this relationship that I built with him that was just so amazing. I don't even know if I can put it into words, but I'm really going to try because it was just beyond anything I had felt or understood. And I actually was a guest on a friend's podcast, and I shared there that I kind of was at this attitude of like, I dare someone to come along and suggest that he has something greater to offer me than what God is currently providing for me. Like I was really good. And I had come to peace with being alone. I really was cherishing this time because I was able to spend it with God. I realized I've been used to being alone, and I really was enjoying this time because God just filled me so full, so completely, and so amazingly that I just was convinced this is the pinnacle. This is everything I have always wanted. At any second of my day, I might not have an actual person to embrace, which is what I used to think love was really all about, having a person in your space to truly share all the details with. And what God taught me was that he was that person. He was the person I could share anything with any second of any point of the day. I don't have to wait for him to be ready. I don't have to wait for a good time for him. I can just talk. I can just pour out my heart and soul. I can just, anytime I wanted to call someone and I wish I had someone to call, I just started pretending I was calling God. I would just start talking to God. And guess what? He always responded. And not only did he respond, he just understood and he comforted me exactly the way I needed to be comforted. He spoke to me and understood me exactly the way I wanted to be. He taught me in a way that was so loving. He would correct me in a way that just was so kind and gentle that I just craved that connection. And I had been in relationships. I'd actually been dating this guy. He really wanted to be everything I wanted, but reality was he just wasn't. I recognized that. As soon as I recognized it, I'm like, hey, yo, this isn't it. And you can pretend, but you just can only pretend so long. It was this point where I just was absolutely done sharing any part of myself with men who really weren't who they said they were. And I felt very strongly that I needed to go to this church. I'd actually previously been to this church just as I was coming out of Mormonism. I'll share that story for a whole nother episode, but I just felt really, really strongly that I needed to go back to this church again and start attending this church. And I just loved it. It felt like being home. I had been there before and I never saw any single men. So I was very confident I could safely attend and no men were going to distract me or bother me. And I think it was about a month or so I'd been going. I noticed this guy I had never seen before. He looked very single and I immediately flagged him as someone to steer very clear of. This church is actually a pretty small church. So steering clear was kind of hard to do. He got up one Sunday, was sharing about this prison ministry he helps teach. And I was like, this is really cool. I'd love to talk to him more and get to know more about this. And then I was like, no. I am not talking to this man under any circumstances. I'm at my peace. I'm in my happy place. I am not rocking this boat. And then another woman in our church has a podcast. She and I had connected and talked a few times. So she had him on her podcast a couple weeks later. She sends me this podcast that he was on. I connected on so many levels. And then I was like, no. We are not doing that. And then one Sunday, a couple weeks later, he was saying the prayer in church. And I was like, that is the most powerful prayer I have ever heard. Like, I still remember almost every single word he said. It was really difficult to avoid this man. But it was about 2 months after I noticed him that I was walking out of church with my children, and he just walked right up to me, and I really could not politely avoid him in any way. So we had a conversation, and I felt very rude. I'm not going to lie. I felt very stiff and very abrasive because I was like, I'm not supposed to be talking to him. But at the same time, he was very kind. I was in awe of like his story, his character, his personality. He's very easy to talk to. I was like, I really love talking to this person. I could like sit and talk to him forever. Now, of course, there's lots more details than that. But suffice it to say, for time's sake, he had a lot of character references affirming he was truly a man of God, and I wasn't even looking for those. And what eventually I just gave up fighting was when I had my very dear friends I was talking to and sharing like, hey, this person is talking to me and I don't know how I feel about this. They confirmed to me that this man was truly not just a man of God, but someone they really believed was a good match for me. And these friends are like family. Like I trust them with my spiritual wellness like I'd never trusted anyone before. So I knew I could trust them and their reference and their recommendation. So I finally relented and I allowed myself to just engage in more conversation with him. Since we're talking about being delulu and delusional, I had lived for a very, very long time, truly most of my life, with the false idea of love that I shared about last week. So I'm not really going to get into that. Finding love again was truly one of those truths that were hard for me to face. And one of the reasons I really pushed away from wanting to even engage with this man, because I just was truly at the end of my, I just don't have time for nonsense. I just don't have any room for that. This was one of those things that required the teaching of the Spirit to really help me understand properly, like true biblical godly love, what he did in me. Because I know you don't know me personally, but I am a feisty little Italian. And God had to do a big work on just me as a human. Like my natural character is kind of feisty. I'm a little spunky. I challenge pretty much everything. I question authority all the time. Gonna 100% be like, yeah, I don't know. Like, I'm gonna need a lot of resources there, and I'm gonna need you to quote all of your information. I love people. I truly, truly love people, and I'm willing to give pretty much anyone a chance, but I'm not gonna just blindly follow anyone without understanding where they're going, why, and as many details as possible as to what they want me to do to follow them or why. And I have opinions. Strong ones, lots of them. And I'm pretty vocal about pretty much all of them. I think that pretty much says a lot. But my natural character is not soft and submissive, right? One of the lessons I had to learn in being prepared for my Boaz is how delulu that character and nature is and was when it wasn't tamed by the Spirit. You know, I was married for 17 years and I learned a lot of coping behaviors like overfunctioning that I had not only to recognize, but I had to change those. I had to be like, okay, that's not healthy. Like, I'm not going to be able to do that in a healthy biblical relationship. I learned a lot of relationship dynamics that aren't healthy or biblical otherwise that I had to learn to recognize and work on. I had to learn about what biblical love and a biblical worldview and even who the biblical God and Savior are. I did not grow up learning those things. I had a lot to learn, my friends. And when you've been lied to, when you've been used or abandoned, trust becomes work. But God makes it possible. I had to first learn, like I mentioned, who God was and is and what his love is like and who he says I am as his creation. And then I had to learn to trust and submit to God and his will and his plan for my life. I had to learn to soften. I had to learn to rely on someone outside of myself to quote unquote get things done. I had to learn to let go. I had to learn to surrender. I have shared before many times how I've proclaimed this year God's year for my life and how I have decided to do just anything he wants. Like whatever he says, I'm going to do it. Whatever he puts in my path, I'm going forward. Whatever he closes and takes away, I'm walking away from, because he clearly has a better plan than I do. And this year is the year he brought me to my Boaz. Not because I've perfected any of these things, because you can be learning and God can still be working and showing up. In fact, this is the in-between, the yet. I would argue that God is directing the learning. And reality is, some of the relationship dynamics I learned not only were not biblical or healthy, but they can't be unlearned without a godly relationship to work on them. So I'm still feisty. And I still want an explanation for everything. I still want all the details. I still want to kind of have control. I'm not used to having someone to share responsibilities and burdens that I can trust, that is present. I had to learn to surrender my burdens to God, but at the end of the day, I was still physically alone. I didn't have any way to practice them. And now this sweet Boaz is in my life, and he's just like practicing this with me. I did learn to surrender my time to God. And then he brought me this wonderful man who I absolutely love spending and sharing my time with. But I just gotten used to being alone. And now I'm alone a lot less. Just getting comfortable, just feeling really confident that God's got me where he wants me. I'm learning and feeling more comfortable with communicating with him and relying on him and surrendering to him. And he's like, whoop, here you go. Here's another lesson. We're going to just switch that up for you a little bit, because I'm still learning how to be safe with a man. I had to learn I could be soft in my strength. That has been a fabulous surprise that my Boaz has unlocked in me. I never knew was a possibility, because reality is, I thought I had already found this kind of man once already. And nothing can prepare you for the reality check when you realize you actually haven't. As a woman who initiated her own divorce, it is incredibly difficult to explain to somebody else what it's like to commit yourself to a man who promises to love, honor, cherish, protect, and provide for you, and who takes vows to do that, and who you are told is going to be doing these things for you. And he's telling you, and I think he genuinely wants to. But then over time, he really doesn't have the capacity or ability to do that, or he's not ready, or it means something different to him than it does to you. And then he just slowly leaves you spiritually and emotionally and mentally, and for some of you physically, to come to the realization after you've made these commitments that the man you thought you were marrying is not actually the man you're married to. Like, it's gut-wrenching. Those wounds require time and God to heal. The size of the scar they leave is completely up to you, but I've learned that these show up for me even though I thought I had them healed completely. My Boaz is still a human, and so am I. We're both imperfect followers of God, of the one true living God. And although our relationship is grounded and guided and directed by God, it's still time and energy and effort to communicate respectfully, clearly, honestly, to listen, to be heard, to be receptive, to be open, to be loving, to be vulnerable again. It's still work to acknowledge that our own perspectives and understandings sometimes get in the way of the Spirit. And I have to slow down a lot and let the Spirit guide, because it's work to be vulnerable and to trust and to open your heart again. You may have thought you were all healed until someone safe shows up, and suddenly you're triggered and you're like, wait. What am I being triggered by? This is a safe person. And yet God is in all of it. He doesn't promise you a smooth ride. He doesn't promise you immediate results. He promises you peace, comfort, strength, to look to eternity and not to this moment. And when I was looking to the Bible for references about yet, I was led to 1 Samuel 3:7, which says, "Now Samuel did not yet know the Lord, and the word of the Lord had not yet been revealed to him." And I just loved this so much, because I just felt like this was me in my post-divorce journey when I didn't yet know the voice and word of the Lord. Eli taught Samuel what was happening. He taught him how to recognize it and understand it. And I had to be taught that as well. And you and I are no different. We're in the process, in the refining with God. You're being taught. The Spirit is leading. You're not behind. You're just becoming. And as I mentioned in the beginning, you have to be really honest with yourself about what you are truly willing to do in order to have what you really want. And if you really don't want to face the realities of what you have power and control over, your actions, your thoughts, your beliefs, your behaviors, your feelings, then it's time to reevaluate what you really want. Maybe you don't really want it if you really don't want to do the work required to get it, because you can't have comfort and live a big life with God. So where do you start? And how do you go about being prepared? So I'm going to give you a few things that you can do. Journal. I know that just sounds cliche, but this is one of the most powerful things you can do. Start doing these 3 questions. Number 1, what am I still holding on to that God is asking me to release or to surrender or to give to Him? Number 2, in what areas do I need to be more honest with myself? What am I really holding on to or trying to keep? What isn't really from Him? And number 3, this is probably my favorite. Who am I becoming? Who am I? One of my favorite tools I teach my clients is this daily journal of my future self. I used to do this every single morning, but I would do my scripture study. I would spend my time with God, and then I would write out exactly what my future self 5 years from now does. Well, how does she spend her time? How does she feel? What is she thinking about? How does she interact and communicate with other people? What are her relationships like? Who does she spend her time with? And what are those people like? Details, friends. Picturing myself in a specific location with a specific person, having a specific conversation. I do this every single morning. It is so powerful because then you can really look at, am I really being honest with myself? And who is God telling me I am? And what am I still holding on to that I need to let go of? So number 2, besides journaling prompts, you can start being really specific with your prayers. One of my favorite prayers that I ever learned to say, most powerful thing, was show me where I am being deceived. And then truly desiring to be shown, truly asking God to have my heart and to show me where I'm being deceived. And sometimes, friends, it's me. Sometimes I have been deceiving myself because your heart is going to deceive you. Another prayer you can say is, open my eyes to your will and purpose for me. What do you really want for me? What do you have planned for me, Lord? Who do you say I am? Open my eyes to your will and purpose. And my other favorite one is just sometimes in desperation, friends, you are overwhelmed and you are just tired. And you are just at a loss and you just want to be safe and you just want to be held and you just want some comfort. This is that prayer. Lord, save me. I have literally said this out loud countless times. And then the third thing you can do, friends, is some scriptures to prepare your heart for God. Hebrews 11 and 12. I was studying these today and just reminded of the promises of our God and that it isn't always about this life. Our promises that He gives to us aren't promised us in this life. Some of them are, but not all of them. And sometimes we have to wait to receive His promise. But it's His time and His purpose and His season. Ecclesiastes 3 is the next scripture you can go and study. What is His timing? What does He tell you about His plan and His purpose? Psalm 37:4 is another fantastic one. And then 2 Corinthians 4:17 and 18. Just give yourself some time in His Word to let Him speak with you. Let God meet you in the yet. That's where He grows your faith, strengthens your character, and prepares your heart for the love you're longing for. And I am going to say for you to understand and receive His love, because that is exactly what you are longing for. His love. His love is perfect. It is going to show you exactly what you really want. When you lean into what He has for you, everything else is either completely insufficient or it just adds to it. Either way, you will naturally start to be repelled from any false forms of love and attracted to true godly ones. And my friend, that kind of love is worth every minute of the wait. Have a great day, friends. You have been listening to the Beyond Believing podcast, and if you liked anything you heard today, I want to invite you to come and work with me privately. This month, I'm starting up a brand new Selah Healing case study group, and I'm looking for a handful of new women to mentor and work closely with. This invitation is very time sensitive, and I won't be able to offer this kind of personalized coaching and access to me for much longer. If this sounds like something you are interested in, find all the details at the link in my bio. I can't wait to hear from you.